The pregnant black waitress was publicly humiliated by the wealthy patron. But when forced to play the piano, something she pulled from her pocket silenced the entire room instantly. A warm Friday evening at La Fontaine, an upscale restaurant in Raleigh, North Carolina. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft glow over white tablecloths as the gentle notes from a corner piano mingled with the clink of fine china. Among the servers moving efficiently between tables was Alexis, a black waitress whose 7-month pregnant belly was visible beneath her uniform. Despite her condition, she carried herself with remarkable poise, back straight, movements precise, eyes alert. Some patrons noticed how she scanned the room with unusual awareness, how she positioned herself strategically when serving, and how she responded to requests with calm efficiency. These weren't typical waitress behaviors, but few connected these traits to her military background. For Alexis, this job was temporary, but dignity was permanent before she donned the black and white server's uniform. Captain Alexis Washington wore Air Force Blues. A decorated officer with 2 tours in Afghanistan and 1 in Iraq, she'd earned commendations for her service at strategic air bases in both conflict zones. Her superiors praised her exceptional leadership and crisis management skills, but few knew about her other talent. Music had been Alexis's first love. Growing up in a modest home in Memphis, she started playing on an old upright piano her grandmother had salvaged from a closing church. By 12, she was playing at community events. By 16, winning regional competitions. But when college scholarships fell through, the Air Force Academy offered both education and purpose. In the military, her musical ability became an unexpected asset. After grueling missions, fellow officers would gather as she played on a weathered piano at the base recreation center. During holidays away from home, her music brought comfort to homesick troops. Once, after a particularly devastating attack on their base in Bagram, she played for hours in the medical unit, the melodies soothing wounded soldiers as medics worked frantically. Now, with her first child due in 2 months, Alexis was on maternity leave. Her husband, Staff Sergeant Marcus Washington, still deployed overseas. She'd taken a restaurant job to save for tuition at the prestigious Durham School of Music. Her military salary was steady, but her dream of formal musical training required extra funds. Each night, Alexis would glance at the gleaming grand piano in La Fontaine's corner, its polished surface reflecting the chandelier light. She never played it. Restaurant policy restricted the piano to the higher musician who came on weekends. Still, she felt its pull, like a soldier drawn to a familiar weapon. Some battles were fought on foreign soil. Others in dining rooms where assumptions about pregnant black women served as invisible barriers. The restaurant's atmosphere shifted when Leonard Grayson arrived. The real estate magnate entered with the confidence of someone who viewed the world as his personal property, followed by 4 similarly polished associates. The maitre d' rushed forward, bowing slightly. "Mr. Grayson, your usual table awaits." As they passed Alexis, who was clearing a nearby table, Leonard's gaze lingered disapprovingly on her pregnant belly. "They're letting anyone serve food these days," he muttered, loud enough for companions to chuckle. Alexis stiffened slightly but maintained her composure, her military training kicking in. Years of handling crisis situations under pressure had taught her to compartmentalize emotions. When she approached their table with water, Leonard examined her with the casual entitlement of someone accustomed to judging others. "Isn't this work a bit challenging in your condition?" he asked, gesturing vaguely toward her midsection. "I manage just fine, sir," Alexis replied with measured politeness, her posture automatically straightening into what her fellow airmen would recognize as parade rest. "Sir," Leonard raised an eyebrow, amused. "Military background, I'm guessing?" "Let me guess, cleaning staff or maybe food service?" His companion smirked as Leonard continued. "Always respect for trying to better yourself, though clearly it didn't stick. Back to serving people either way, aren't you?" Alexis maintained her neutral expression, a skill perfected during countless tense briefings. "Your menus, gentlemen. I'll return shortly for your orders," she said, turning with a controlled precision that was second nature after years in uniform. The evening progressed with Leonard growing increasingly loud as his second scotch emptied. His table had become the center of attention, exactly as he preferred. When Alexis returned with their entrees, Leonard interrupted his own story. "Our pregnant military server returns," he announced, drawing unwanted eyes to Alexis. "Tell me, what did you do in the service? File paperwork? Make beds?" Alexis positioned the plates with precision. "Will there be anything else for now, sir?" Leonard wasn't satisfied. "You know what I find fascinating? How people end up where they do. You serve your country, now you're serving lobster. And soon, you'll be serving a child." He gestured to her belly. "Quite the demotion each time, wouldn't you say?" A tense silence fell over nearby tables. An older couple exchanged uncomfortable glances. A businessman at the bar turned to watch. "Military service is never a demotion, sir," Alexis responded quietly. The restaurant manager, sensing trouble, moved closer. "Oh, I meant no disrespect to the troops," Leonard said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Just making conversation. Life's about choices, after all." His gaze fixed on Alexis with calculated intensity. "Though I wonder what choices lead a pregnant woman to carry heavy trays instead of preparing for motherhood. Hardly seems like responsible planning." Alexis felt her child shift within her, as if responding to her rising blood pressure. She'd faced insurgent fire in Kandahar with less anxiety than she felt now. In battle, the enemy was clear. Here, she was fighting prejudice while balancing wine glasses. "My husband is currently serving overseas," she said, her voice steady. "And planning for our child's future is precisely why I'm working." Leonard smiled thinly. "Admirable, though I imagine waitressing wasn't the future you planned." As dessert menus were distributed, Leonard's attention shifted to the grand piano in the corner. The weekend pianist hadn't arrived yet, leaving the instrument temporarily unattended. "You mentioned earlier you were in the military," Leonard said, his voice carrying across nearby tables. "But surely that's not all there is to you. Any hidden talents? Hobbies?" The question seemed innocent, but Alexis recognized tactical maneuvering when she saw it. "Everyone has something they enjoy, sir." "Do you play?" Leonard gestured toward the piano, his smile not reaching his eyes. Before Alexis could respond, one of the busboys whispered something to Leonard. His expression changed from casual interest to predatory delight. "Oh, you do play. James here says he's caught you looking at that piano like a lost love." Leonard's voice rose, ensuring others would hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a musical server in our midst." Several diners looked up, curious. Leonard continued, "I think we deserve a demonstration. After all, we're paying good money tonight." The restaurant manager approached. "Mr. Grayson, our staff isn't required to." "Nonsense." Leonard waved dismissively. "I'll add a generous tip. Consider it entertainment." He turned to Alexis. "Unless you're not as talented as you let on." The challenge hung in the air. Alexis felt every eye on her uniform, on her pregnant belly. This wasn't about music. It was about power, about putting someone he viewed as beneath him in her place. Alexis stood motionless, one hand unconsciously moving to her belly. Time seemed to slow as memories cascaded through her mind. She remembered playing for injured soldiers in a medical tent in Baghdad, the melody of Debussy floating above the sounds of medical equipment. She thought of the night her unit had lost 2 airmen, how she played until dawn as grieving comrades sat in silent vigil. Music wasn't performance for her. It was connection, comfort, strength. She thought of her husband, facing dangers thousands of miles away, and their unborn child who would someday learn what courage meant. What lesson would she teach by walking away? What message would she send by staying silent? "I'll play one piece," Alexis said finally, her voice quiet but firm. As she walked toward the piano, conversations hushed. She felt Leonard's smug satisfaction radiating across the room. He expected embarrassment, mediocrity, a server out her depth, providing amusement at her own expense. Before sitting at the bench, Alexis reached into her pocket and removed something small and metallic. Without fanfare, she placed her military challenge coin on the piano's polished surface. The insignia of her unit, the marks of her rank, glinting under the chandelier light. Alexis adjusted the bench, accommodating her pregnant form with dignity. Her hands hovered above the keys for a heartbeat. then descended with gentle authority. The opening notes of Clair de Lune emerged, tentative at first, then growing in confidence with each measure. Leonard leaned back, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. Clair de Lune, predictable, simple enough. His entertainment was going according to plan. Then something shifted. Alexis's interpretation deepened, her touch transforming the familiar piece into something more profound. Each note carried emotional weight beyond its musical value. The restaurant grew silent as servers paused. Diners set down their utensils and conversations faded. As her confidence grew, Alexis transitioned seamlessly into Chopin Ballade No. 1 in G minor, a piece requiring technical mastery and emotional depth. Her hands moved with precision born from both discipline and passion. The military coin gleamed near the music rack, catching the eye of a gray-haired man seated near the window. Leonard's expression changed from amusement to confusion, then to discomfort. This wasn't the fumbling performance he'd anticipated. The pregnant server wasn't playing like someone fulfilling an obligation. She performed with the confidence of an artist reclaiming her space. A young couple at a nearby table held hands tighter. An elderly woman dabbed her eyes. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to listen, standing transfixed near the service doors. As the piece built toward its thunderous climax, Alexis's military bearing was evident in her posture, in the disciplined precision of her technique. Yet there was something else, a vulnerability and humanity that spoke of battlefields and hospitals, of comrades lost in moments of grace amid chaos. The gray-haired man near the window leaned forward, studying the challenge coin. His companion whispered something, and his eyes widened as he looked more carefully at Alexis. When the final chord resonated through the dining room, Alexis remained still, hands resting lightly on the keys. Silence hung in the air, not awkward, but reverent, the moment suspended between heartbeats. For 3 seconds, the restaurant remained frozen in silence. Then, like a wave breaking, applause erupted. Not polite, obligatory clapping, but genuine, enthusiastic appreciation. Several patrons rose to their feet. A woman called "Bravo" from across the room. The gray-haired man stood, military bearing evident in his posture. "Captain Washington," he called clearly. Alexis turned, surprised to hear her rank. "Colonel Peterson, sir," she replied automatically, recognizing the retired Air Force officer she'd met at a leadership symposium the previous year. "Ladies and gentlemen," the colonel announced, his authoritative voice carrying easily. "That wasn't just any performance. Captain Washington here is one of the finest logistics officers I've had the privilege to serve with. Bronze Star recipient for her service coordinating emergency medical evacuations under enemy fire in Kandahar." Murmurs spread through the restaurant. Leonard's face had lost its color, his expression caught between disbelief and dismay. "She's being modest about her musical talents," Colonel Peterson continued. "Apogrom. She played for wounded soldiers when we lost power to the medical unit during a massive attack. Some men said her music kept them holding on until medevac arrived." A woman at a table near Leonard's whispered loudly to her companion, "And that jerk may have performed like a circus animal." Leonard shifted uncomfortably, attempting to regain control. "Well," he said loudly, "I clearly have a talent for spotting hidden potential. That's why I'm successful in business." No one laughed. Instead, a pregnant silence filled the room, more damning than any comment. Alexis rose from the piano bench with grace, collected her challenge coin, and with a composure instilled through years of military discipline, walked back to Leonard's table. "Will there be anything else this evening, sir?" she asked, her voice steady, expression neutral. Leonard cleared his throat, suddenly interested in straightening his napkin. "No, that will be all," he muttered. "Actually," one of the companions said, "I think an apology might be in order, Leonard." Leonard shot him a withering look before forcing a tight smile. "Fine performance, Captain. Didn't realize we had someone so accomplished serving us." "Many people have talents and histories you might not expect, Mr. Grayson," Alexis replied evenly. "The uniform doesn't define the person wearing it." Colonel Peterson approached, standing beside Alexis. "Captain Washington's unit saved my son's squadron during a coordinated attack." Her quick, thinking established an emergency evacuation route. When the primary landing zone was compromised, he turned to her. "How's Marcus doing overseas?" "Counting the days until he meets his daughter, sir," Alexis replied, her hand resting briefly on her belly. Leonard's discomfort visibly increased as he realized the depth of his miscalculation. He wasn't just facing a server he could intimidate, but a respected officer with connections he hadn't anticipated. "Perhaps we should finish our evening elsewhere," one of Leonard's associates suggested, already signaling for the check. As Leonard prepared to leave, he couldn't meet Alexis's eyes. His typical commanding presence had deflated, replaced by the awkward movements of someone eager to escape. "Your check has been taken care of," Colonel Peterson informed Leonard's group. "Consider a lesson in respect, courtesy of several grateful patrons." Leonard left without another word, his hasty departure a victory more satisfying than any confrontation. After Leonard's departure, the atmosphere in LaFontaine shifted. Patrons approached Alexis, offering congratulations for both her performance and her service. The restaurant owner emerged from his office, apologizing for not intervening sooner and insisting she take the rest of the night off with pay. "There's someone who'd like to meet you," Colonel Peterson said, guiding Alexis to a table where a distinguished woman in her 60s waited. "Captain Washington. This is Elaine Montgomery, director of the Durham School of Music." Alexis's breath caught. Elaine Montgomery was a legend in classical music circles. "I'm on the board at Durham," Montgomery explained, "and we have a scholarship program specifically for veterans. Colonel Peterson mentioned you months ago, but hearing you play tonight..." She paused. "Talent like yours shouldn't wait for someday. We start a new session next month, with flexible options for new parents." As they discussed possibilities, Alexis felt her baby kick energetically, as if applauding this unexpected turn of events. Later that night, during a video call with her husband, Alexis recounted the evening. Marcus's face on the small screen showed both anger at Leonard's behavior and pride in his wife's response. "You always find a way to complete the mission," he said, his voice slightly distorted by the poor connection. "That's why I fell in love with you. I was just being stubborn," Alexis laughed. "No," Marcus replied seriously. "You were being you, standing your ground without losing yourself. That's the mother I want for our daughter." 3 weeks later, Alexis started classes at Durham, her schedule arranged around prenatal appointments. The LaFontaine owner offered her a weekend position as their featured pianist, a job she could bring her baby to once she was born. Colonel Peterson's wife organized a virtual baby shower attended by members of Alexis's former unit, scattered across 3 continents. Among the gifts was a music box that played Clair de Lune with a note for the next generation of warriors and artists. Sometimes dignity comes dressed in a server's uniform. Sometimes courage means playing your heart out when others expect you to fail. And sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect is simply showing the world who you truly are. Alexis's story reminds us that respect isn't determined by uniform or circumstance, but earned through character and resilience. This black female officer faced a triple challenge of racial bias, gender expectations, and pregnancy assumptions, yet stood tall through it all. Her military training taught her discipline and dignity. Her music gave her a voice when words wouldn't suffice. Together, they created a symphony of strength that silenced judgment and opened doors. We all face moments when others underestimate us or try to define our worth by their limited perception. How do you respond when someone misjudges you based on appearances? Have you or someone you know serve in the military while pursuing other dreams? Share your stories of resilience in the comments below. If the story of dignity under fire inspired you, subscribe for more tales of unexpected courage. And remember, sometimes the most powerful statement is simply showing your true self to a world that thought it had you figured out.